A Chesapeake High School senior killed by a drunk driver. Tonight, Jerode Johnson was given the maximum sentence. Last May, Johnson crashed his delivery truck into an SUV, killing Kaitlyn Duffy and seriously hurting her friend, Sabrina Mundorff. 13 News Now reporter Stephen Graves, he joins us live outside the Virginia Beach courthouse where the sentence was handed down.
Janet, the judge called this one of the worst drunk driving incidents he's ever seen. He says he hopes this sentence, the severity of it, sends a message to the public, letting them know that drinking and driving is not okay. And he said Johnson had a choice to get behind the wheel of that truck, drunk and drugged, so that's why he's getting this max sentence. Now, this sentencing hearing lasted for hours. It was highly emotional. That's mainly because of the victim impact statements read from Sabrina and Kaitlyn's families. They basically said they feel as though they are serving a life sentence of grief after this one decision by Johnson. Now, in a tense moment, Johnson actually did turn around, look at the families of the girls. He apologized, saying that he thinks about this every day, he gets no sleep, and that he asks them for forgiveness. He wiped away tears as Kaitlyn's mom played a slideshow of pictures telling the story of her daughter's life from birth until death.
I hope he actually thinks of her as a human being now that there really was somebody behind that wheel when he took off and ran.
And Johnson did plead guilty before this sentencing. Prosecutors say he had a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. He had marijuana, cocaine, and Valium in his system during the time of this crash. Kaitlyn's family says they haven't forgiven him yet, but Johnson's family, they say this was injustice. They claim that he is a family man, this was a bad decision, and they do plan to appeal this ruling. Reporting in Virginia Beach, Stephen Graves, 13 News Now.